everybody! Last year, I competed in my first barbecue competition, and if you weren't there or haven't seen that video, my team won in the ribs category, which was about as good as we could have done in that one. And after that win, I would have been content retiring on top. But now, another team has approached me and asked me to join up for this year's competition, which is an all brisket competition. Now, I don't like cooking brisket. It takes far too long and it's just a pain in the butt. So initially, I passed on joining that team, but I did volunteer to help with a recipe. So I started constructing a recipe, and after a couple of test runs, I knew I had a legit contender on my hands. And at that point, I was all in on competing and joined up with the team. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the recipe as I cook this final test run, and then we're taking it out to compete. So make sure and stick around until the end to see how we do. I am making these K-poppin Korean brisket tacos that all the judges are gonna love. So let's get started. So the first and most important thing to do in a brisket competition is to cook a brisket. But just smoking a brisket and making a sauce doesn't get me excited about cooking. I need to mix it up and bring something unique to the party. It's a high-risk, high-reward approach, but it's the only way I can be switched on for a contest. So for this event, I'm gonna smoke a brisket and I'm gonna make some sauce, but then I'm gonna hack it all up and make some unique tacos. So let's get started by prepping this baby brisket. And this little guy is from the leaner flat end of the brisket, so it's not gonna be nearly as succulent as the full briskets that we'll have at the cook-off, but it'll work for a test. And if I can cook this thing without drying it out, then we're gonna be golden with the full-sized mamma jammas. So there is a little bit of trim on this guy, not much compared to the whole thing. Mostly this gigantic wad of fat right here. So I'll cut that guy off. I'll leave a little bit behind because this is quite a lean cut here. Now I'm just going to cut off any of the thin little flappy bits because they're just going to burn up. And I'm leaving a fair amount of fat in here. It's gonna kind of melt and make this thing a little bit more moist. That'll do for a test brisket. Now to start the seasoning, I want to get this thing salted. I want the salt to sit on there for several hours before it goes into the smoker. And it's gonna get some flavor down in there, and it'll have a wee curing effect that'll help with the smoke ring. And I don't give a rip about smoke rings, but judges seem to like them. And another thing you can do that may help with the smoke ring a bit is to start with a little bit of celery salt down on there. Just a little. Sprinkle it all around. There is a small amount of nitrite in celery, and nitrite is what cures meat. So getting a little of that in there may, just maybe, help develop a little thicker smoke ring, if that's what you're into. Now, plenty of plain salt. And it's a big, thick piece of meat, especially the whole brisket, so you can be pretty heavy-handed with the salt. And I do go heavier on the point end than I do on the flat end. Just makes sense. You can really get in there. You can massage your meat, give it a good squeeze and rub. And the last thing I'm going to do for now is to just lightly sprinkle that with some sugar. Just a little bit. And that is to help with the outside color. Give it a little more caramelized look. Not too much. I'm not trying to make this sweet. And if you go really heavy, then it can get too dark. Now, I'm just gonna pop this into the refrigerator for at least 8 hours, and then I'll take it out and finish the seasoning about an hour before I start the cook. Oh, our baby brisket is back. It's been soaking up that salt and that little bit of sugar for around 8 hours now, so it's time to get some spice onto here. And I have used all different types of spice blends on briskets, but my all-time favorite is probably just salt and black pepper. Nice and simple. And we're going to keep it nice and simple with this one too. I'm getting lots of flavor from the sauce that I'm going to be making. So this one I am going to be just doing salt and pepper, but rather than using black pepper, I'm going to be using white pepper on this one. And I'm going to use a combination of fine and coarse ground. That fine to give it kind of an all-encompassing flavor, and the coarse grind will give it a little bit of texture. And I'm going to put a pretty heavy shellacking of that pepper on here. Let me get some fine going. A dusting of fine. Then I'll turn this thing up and get some nice chunky bits of pepper on here. And the pepper mill will work for doing this little guy, but when I'm grinding up the pepper for the big ones, I'll either use a coffee grinder or I'll just throw it in a bag and beat the heck out of it with a hammer. That works pretty good. Now I'm really going to push those in, mash them down in, and we'll flip it over and hit the other side. There we go. Well, that thing nice and coated like a pastrami. Now this thing is ice cold, so I'm going to leave it sitting out here uncovered at room temperature for an hour or so. That'll give that pepper a little time to stick itself to there really well, and it'll get this thing started coming up to temperature. And in the meantime, I'll go get the smoker ready. I'm just about ready to get this out into the smoker, and the last thing I want to do is to pump this thing up a little bit. This is just some beef broth, low sodium, and this is not something that I always do, but in this competition, moisture management is going to be key, because we do not know what position we're going to be judged in. So if we end up being later in the judging, that's going to give the brisket more of an opportunity to dry out a little bit. I want to make sure this is nice and juicy at any point during the judging. And I probably should have done that before putting the pepper on, because now it's all wet. I'll pat this down with some paper towels and make sure that pepper gets really stuck on there before I get this into the smoker. And I'll go ahead and pop in a wireless meat thermometer. Love these things. That is a great invention. With this thin little brisket in here, I'm going to be running 225 degrees Fahrenheit the whole time. I'm running pecan wood today because I like the flavor of that, but use whatever wood you like. And I probably won't put any kind of a wrap on this little guy. It's going to cook so quickly that if I wrap it, I don't think it'll get the amount of smoke on it that I would like. But with the big guys, it's going to be a little bit different. Those things are going to be 4 or 5 times the size of that little one. So I'll get them in there. We're going to start them off at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when they come up and hit the stall somewhere around 170 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, that temperature when you're cooking a brisket or a lot of other real big pieces of meat, you're rising and rising, things are looking good, and then it just stops and flatlines for hours. When it hits that stall, I will take the big ones out and I'll wrap them tightly in aluminum foil. Then I'll get them back in there and drop the temperature to 225 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when those wrapped briskets hit around 195 degrees Fahrenheit, I'll unwrap them, keep them cooking for a little while to get a little crust going, up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and at that point they're ready to shut down and start the rest. And these big pieces of meat can rest for a long time. I'll let them rest for around 20 minutes, just open air. Take the edge off a little bit, then we're going to pack them all into a cooler, pack the rest of the cooler with towels, and once they're down in there, they will stay hot for many hours with that much meat in the cooler. And in this smoker, I am set up with a high temperature probe and a low temperature probe, so I will rotate those briskets around as needed to kind of chase the temperature. I'll also have those wireless thermometers in at least 2 of them so I can keep track of the internal temperature. So I'm going to be monitoring this thing quite a bit. In the competition setting, I won't really take my eyes off this for more than a few minutes at a time. It's much more casual here at home. So these are good to go. Let's go inside and make some sauce. Now this sauce is where the magic is going to happen for this recipe. And this is a sauce that I've been making variations on for many, many years, but now I've actually organized it into an actual recipe with legitimate measurements so that I can make it consistently. It's very easy to make. There's no cooking required. You're just going to blend everything together. And this is a sauce that goes great with just about any type of grilled or smoked meat, and even on grilled vegetables. So we're going to get started with some fresh ginger. Just a nice knob of ginger, about a thumb of ginger. And you can peel it or you can not peel it. It's not going to make a big difference because we're going to blend this all together. We'll get that right down into the blender bowl. That piece wasn't quite thumb size, so I think I'll add just another little nugget to that. And we're going to follow that up with 2 to 4 cloves of fresh garlic. These are pretty massive cloves, so I'm just going to use 2 of them. Now we're going to get in there with a bunch of white sugar. You can use brown sugar if you want, but you're not going to notice the difference. So this is 2/3 of a cup of white sugar. Next up, 1/4 cup of soy sauce. And this is 2 tablespoons of gochujang, sweet, salty, spicy Korean chili paste. This stuff has a tremendous amount of flavor. Just a ton of that umami. It is sticky stuff too. Now we're going to cut through all that sweetness with just a bit of apple cider vinegar. It's going to be 1 tablespoon, but that is not quite enough, so I'll add another teaspoon, just another little splash to get there. And this is some roasted sesame oil. It's delicious, and the flavor really lingers, which is going to be important because I understand that aftertaste is one of the criteria that we're going to be judged on. So a little lingering sesame oil shouldn't hurt. Let's go with 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. It doesn't have to be roasted sesame oil either. So I'm going to blend this together, and once everything's nice and smooth, I'm going to add in some vegetable oil to thicken things up. Now, when that is nice and smooth, get in there, do a little taste test. And if there's any kind of grit from the sugar not being dissolved, add in a tablespoon or so of water. Blend it again, And just repeat that until it is completely silky smooth. Don't know why I put that back on there, because this is smooth. Now the final ingredient will be 1/4 cup of some vegetable oil or any neutral flavored oil. And that is going to emulsify and thicken the sauce. And depending on what you're cooking, it'll also give you some buffer against that sauce burning, because there's a lot of sugar in there and it's easy to burn sugar. Now we'll get that back on there and blend that for another 30 seconds to a minute, and you'll be able to see that thicken up real nice. Alright, there we go. That is a nice, thick, and tasty sauce. And you can make this sauce way in advance. It'll keep in the refrigerator for at least a month. It'll get a little bit darker in color, but that won't hurt a thing. So the sauce is ready, and now I've got one last bit of prep to do while the brisket is out in the smoker. Now the last element of this dish is a little bit of a salad to top those tacos to give a little contrast in texture. We're also going to get a little bit of acid in there to cut through the richness of that brisket. So I've got some green cabbage, and I've done this with Napa cabbage as well, but if you're not serving it right away, the green cabbage will stay crispier for a little longer than that Napa cabbage. But if you're gonna whip this up and serve it, the Napa cabbage is great in this recipe. I've got some white onion. I've used yellow onion as well here. I don't think it really matters what type of onion you use here. I've got 1 hot pepper. This is a pretty hot red jalapeno from my garden. And then I've also got some sweet red peppers. That'll give us a little bit of contrast in color. And we've got some cilantro here. So I'll get started by cutting a little bit of this onion. I'm not going to need very much at all. And I'm going to cut it very, very finely, so that people who don't like onion don't really notice that it's in there. You know that old trick. So I'm doing a pretty small batch of this today, so I'll only need 2 or 3 tablespoons of this minced onion. Alright, 2 or 3 tablespoons of really finely minced onion there. Now let's get to the cabbage. This is a small green cabbage. I'll use about half of it. I want to shave this also very thin. There. Nice, thin, shredded cabbage. It's a bit of a coleslaw. Now move on to this hot pepper. Get rid of all that pith and all the seeds inside of there. Now with the hot one, I also want to get a very, very fine mince on that. You don't want anybody getting a big chunk of that and getting completely lit up. We'll cut it into some very thin strips, and then line them up and chop that into really itty bitty bits. Get into those sweet peppers. We'll also clean those out. There's not much inside of these. And we'll cut these the same way we did that hot jalapeno, but into a little bit bigger dice. finally, that cilantro. And I'll put just kind of a rough chop on that. I'll just toss this all around. Make sure I've got a nice colorful blend going. That looks great. Now I'm gonna hold off on dressing this until I get that brisket out and it's resting, because as soon as I get some salt into here, it's gonna start to wilt the cabbage and begin to lose some of the crispiness. So when I do this for the competition, I'll get it to this stage and then I'm gonna bag it up and keep that on ice until right before we serve the judges, and then I will dress the salad. Gotta look at that little cutie. Got a nice looking bark on that one. So, this little guy is gonna need to rest probably only around 20 minutes or so. So we'll just set that aside, get our salad all dressed, and then we'll put this dish together. Okay, it's time to dress this salad. It's very simple, so it's something I'll be able to do really quickly right before serving this up. It's very simple dressing. We're just gonna put in some lime juice, some salt, and some sesame oil. We'll get in there with the lime. Use as much or as little as you like. Big old pinch of salt. And a healthy squirt of that sesame oil. Give that a toss. Another big pinch of salt. Oh yeah. It's gonna need just a touch more lime. That'll get it. Oh yeah. This stuff is good on its own. It's just a side salad. Delicious. Well, I think we're ready to put this dish together. Ooh, look at that. There's your good smoke ring right there. Nice and juicy. And it pulls apart just right. Boy, I can smell that that is some high quality beef. It's perfect brisket, if I do say so myself. But now, let's put together our plate as I plan to present it to the judges. Okay, even though the X factor in this competition is going to be the taco, it is a brisket competition, so I'll be serving up a nice slab of brisket to the judges. And we'll hit that with that sauce. Just give it a nice little squiz on there, and then we'll top it with a little bit of sesame seed just to make it pretty. And now for the star of the show, got a little mini tortilla, and we'll have a flat top out there to warm up our tortillas. We'll get a nice portion of brisket on there for them. We'll hit that with the squiz too. And now I've got some cotija cheese, some Mexican dry cheese. And we'll get a little sprinkle on there for a little more richness. Now we'll get in there with just a small pinch of that slaw on there, real pretty like. Oh yeah, it's looking good. And then to top it off, with a tiny little squeeze of some Japanese mayo. Very nice. And that is the dish. But now, let's see how we did. Brisket first. Oh yeah. Check out that bite. That is fantastic. And I don't think anybody is gonna have a sauce like this. I can almost guarantee it. That's great. And next, our little taco. Check out that bite. Oh yeah. That is the stuff. Wow. I gotta get in there again. Ooh. That is legit. Oh, flavor and texture on this thing, spot on. The meat, the cheese, that little bit of mayo, all very rich, but the little bit of lime cuts that down. It's got nice sweet and salty balance, and the texture is so good. It's got nice and soft meat in the tortilla and then a crispy crunch of the salad. That taco is on and poppin'. Nah, that taco is on and K-poppin'. That is a K-poppin' taco. I tell ya, I think it's a lock. This is an excellent recipe that I am fairly confident is going to put us in running for that top spot this year. It is going to be a long and arduous cook that I'm not looking forward to, but I am hoping that it pays off with gold. And just in case you don't want to cook a brisket, and I almost never want to cook a brisket, while I was doing some test runs, I used grilled steak in place of the brisket, and that was excellent as well. And that's something you could put together just about any night of the week. Now we've got 5 days for the team to game plan how we're going to pull this off at the competition, but you don't want any part of that, so the next time you see me, we'll be at the competition cooking this brisket, making these tacos, and hopefully seizing sweet victory. And so it begins. It's 8 a.m. on Friday morning. This competition is at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. We got everybody out here setting up. It is an interesting setup because the cook site is not the same as the competition site. So we're gonna cook everything here overnight and pick up and move to the other site tomorrow. So that's a little bit strange, but a little adversity never hurt. We're just now getting set up. We got the wood burning guys out there. We're just going with the little electric guy on here today. We are currently waiting for the meat to arrive. So it's about 10 a.m. Our meat is all prepped, seasoned up, and sitting in a cooler to rest and soak up the spice. We'll probably get things heating up around 4 p.m. We're shooting for about an 8 a.m. finish time. Everybody's out here setting up. Once we get going, this is just gonna be A very long family style hang. Should be a good time. Just after 4 p.m. and we are smoking. Time to settle in for a long night. The sun is going down. Got some entertainment out here. After everything dies down is when the grind begins. It is just after 5:30 a.m. and our cook is done. Just letting these rest for a bit before I pop them down into the cooler, and they'll stay hot in there for several hours. Judging begins at 10 a.m. I think we're looking good. So now we got to pack up our whole site and transport everything across town for tasting and judging. That was a long day and a long night. Been out here for about 21 hours already. No sleeping. The cook, we did about 7 hours of smoke, then 5 hours in the foil, I think. 4.5, 5 hours, then opened them up for a little while to let the surface crust up a bit. And they look great and they feel good, so fingers crossed. Good. Sprinkle. Perfect.
And the final team to be judged today by our judges, the Odd Fellows. Come on down, Cottage Grove Odd Fellows. They are also sponsors of this event.
Alright, let's get the gloves off.
Remind, tell all your friends and family. Come to the K-poppin Taco booth. Odd Fellows, Team 9.
Here we go. Just about time. They're gonna announce the winners. I think we sold somewhere between 350 and 400 tacos. People seem to really like them. So, let's see how we did.
For the People's Choice Award, it was close. We're gonna do places this year. We have one winner for the People's Choice though. Third place in the People's Choice Award, the Odd Fellows. Congratulations on third place. Second place, Bearded Brothers. And in first place, for the first time, Kyle Kitchen Construction. The people do like you. They really like you.
He's like, that's all I got.
The winner of the 2025, did you hear that? I'm getting choked up. 6 months I work on this thing. Oddfellows.
And in that moment of sublime glory, I finally understood what this was all about. There's camaraderie, teamwork, and building long-lasting and meaningful friendships. But in the end, what matters most is winning.
Grand prize! We got this killer grill. Very nice trophy. It was a lock, baby. It was a lock. Oh yeah! Sweet, sweet victory. We did it again, everybody. That was a long day. And to be more specific, a long day, night, and another day from 8 a.m. on Friday until 2 p.m. Saturday, and I am beat. But I want to give a big shout out to the team from the local chapter of the Independent Order of Oddfellows for inviting me onto this thing. Jamie, Yvonne, and Penn, they gave me free reign over the recipe, and then from prep all the way through the cook and service, they were awesome. And when you're part of a good team, it just makes everything so much easier. I knew we had a solid recipe, but when we started serving and they were slinging tacos assembly line style, everybody was dialed in and it just went so smoothly. There was literally nothing to worry about. I love it. They absolutely crushed it and earned this. I also want to shout out Toby, who organized the event, and all the other teams that competed. It was a really fun and friendly group, just a great bunch of people to hang out with for an overnight cook. But there can only be one champion. And check out these prizes. We got this sweet custom trophy. These sprockets represent the charity that took in the proceeds from the cook-off, Slabtown BMX, which coincidentally is the team I competed with in last year's cook-off. And I'll put their information down in the description of the video. They're building a BMX track out here to give these aimless kids something to do other than stare at their phones all day. So in the end, we did this for the kids. I also got this commemorative cutting board to go beside the one from last year. And we won a nice grill too, which will be seeing a lot of good use down at the local Oddfellows Lodge. The big trophy will be down there too to be displayed for generations. I think I'll hold on to the cutting board. It is a nice little memento. So, once again, I have to choose between going out on top or defending. But I am way too tired to even think about cooking right now, so you're just gonna have to stay tuned to see if I compete again. I do have at least one more recipe in my back pocket that would be a sure contender. So if I do compete again, you may think you want to come down and take on the king, but then again, you just might not want a brisket. Thanks for watching, and good night.